What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So it seems recently the GameCube has seen a bit of a resurgence, especially on the Switch with games like Metroid Prime Remastered and soon even Baten Kaitos. Well, now a new rumor is starting to make the rounds that appears to show a certain game from that generation, making its return almost 20 years later, and we'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Nintendo doing what Nintendo does, and that's use the courtroom to their advantage, this time going after the leakers for that Zelda Tears of the Kingdom art book, and we'll also be taking a look at Microsoft, who has now responded to the situation where they were blocking emulators on their Xbox Series systems. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below, and we're going to start today with Half-Life Alyx, which, by all accounts, from a lot of people, it's the best VR game ever made, or at least one that really showcases VR in a way of it not necessarily feeling like a tech demo, more or less an actual game. Well, now there's a new mod out there that will let people who don't have a VR headset actually experience the game for what it is without all the VR stuff. We can see this posted up over on Twitter. This from Half-Life Alyx No VR saying our biggest update yet is out now. The campaign can now be completed from start to finish. Gravity gloves are working. Combined fabricators can be used to upgrade your weapons. Much more. Check the reply for the link. That is all the details in an article and a download link. So, I mean, Half-Life Alyx still has an entire story you go through, and if you're really into Half-Life, but you don't have a VR headset that's capable of running it, yeah, you've kind of been sitting on the sidelines this entire time. But now you can have this modification. Just realize the game is not necessarily going to feel as revolutionary as it would be if you were using a Valve Index or something like that. But either way, at least it's a way for you to experience the story, the lore, and all of this. Although I think there's some other aspects missing, puzzles and such. But pretty cool modification, at least to get people who have been missing this the whole time, way to play it. Also, we do have a release date for Super Bomberman R2. We can see this post up over on Gamatsu, where they say Bomberman R2 launches September 13th, that's in North America, and September 14th in Europe and Japan. This, of course, coming out on the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC through Steam. There will also be a physical edition available on September 12th, so look out for that one, all the collectors. But then we also have several key features, which includes a battle mode that does have a story mode next to it. And the thing with the story mode is, I remember when Bomberman R, that was a Switch launch title, and it was a very strange launch title next to things like, I don't know, Breath of the Wild. But it was still cool to see Bomberman make kind of that comeback and be there for the launch. And then afterwards, we saw Konami kind of paraded around to a bunch of different platforms, and that includes Stadia, where they're one of the few games to take advantage of the power of the cloud, quote unquote, with a very large battle royale mode for it. But then also they have grade match, room match, offline battle, and even a stage editor. So pretty cool stuff there for the sequel to Bomberman R. Just look out for that one in September. Oh, and as we're getting closer to June, we're starting to, of course, think about some of the showcases that have been announced and potentially could be announced. One of those includes Microsoft and their already announced Xbox Game Studio Showcase, as well as Starfield, which is going to have their own separate presentation. Well, this was posted up, started to make the rounds, also picked up by places like The Verge with Tom Warren, and we can see this from Walking Cat saying Xbox Game Showcase and Starfield Direct, that's June 11th, essentially being 2 hours long. So 10 a.m., that's Pacific time, so 1 p.m. Eastern, up to 3 p.m. Eastern. All right, so that being 2-hour block, people are speculating, does that mean that Microsoft will have 90 minutes of stuff to show? That seems like a lot, although you feel like Microsoft should have a lot to show just based on the number of studios that they have. And then that last half hour, I assume, would just be all Starfield, right? So, hey, we're just going to have a large chunk of us playing Starfield, exploring as much as we can, and going over some of the fundamentals, and then obviously, when it releases in the fall, you can sort of look around and discover things for yourself. But exciting stuff here. We'll wait for the official announcement, though, from Microsoft, I'm sure coming up in the next month or so. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the GameCube. That's unquestionably better than the Nintendo 64, but we have been seeing games come up from that generation and translate over pretty well. We have seen a lot of work get put into some of those games like Metroid Prime Remastered, but there is one title that's been brought up from time to time, and as I had thought about it, I realized it wouldn't take much work to translate that game from the GameCube to the Switch, mostly because the art style has aged beautifully, and that's Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, that many people look at as the pinnacle of the Paper Mario series, myself included. Well, now there's new rumor going around that has the potential to completely disappoint the entire fan base, as it's being talked about as a game that is actually coming soon to the Switch. We can see this posted up. This was originally over on Famaboard, started to make the rounds and being posted up on places like Reddit and My Nintendo News. This coming from Pikmin, who says, I have something super excited I'm aware of. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remaster is finally happening and coming out soon. I've been in touch with 3 sources with this one. One of them redirected me to the third source, so I hadn't interacted before, so it was just me cold messaging them on LinkedIn because this third source wouldn't acknowledge the release date I'd heard from previous 2 sources. I'll just leave it as coming soon. Okay, so the interesting thing with Paper Mario in general, the last one that was announced, Origami King, remember, that just showed up on Twitter and it's out a couple months later. It wasn't even part of a direct. It's just one day you woke up, oh, Paper Mario's announced, we'll see you in like 60 some odd days or something. It was pretty surprising, and then to see that turnaround, it was actually pretty cool because we didn't have to wait very long. And while it wasn't exactly an incredible experience, it was definitely better than what we had with something like Color Splash. So we're already kind of trending in the correct direction there. But going back to Thousand Year Door, it actually makes a lot of sense, but I'm still leaving this one up to a bit of a coin flip here, which I'll explain why. But let's talk about all the reasons why this actually makes sense for Nintendo to do. One, next year is the 20th anniversary, which seems really weird to say, oh, this GameCube game is going to be 20 years old next year, but hey, 2004 to 2024, yeah. We're all getting old. On top of that, though, it's also a game that many people in the fan base have been requesting see a remaster. It probably wouldn't take nearly as much work as what we saw with Metroid Prime Remastered, because the visuals and the art style still look good right now on the GameCube. And if they kind of touched it up, upscaled it, resolution, smooth things out, sure, I think it would actually look very good on the Switch, especially if they hit, as I would expect, the native 1080p and then even 720p in handheld mode. But the biggest reason is it seems to fit in with the trend that we've been hearing that Nintendo is going to be doing, at least for the next year or two, as they sort of bridge that generational gap. We kind of expect them to have said something about next generation by the end of 2024, and we keep hearing that we will see more and more games being pulled from the GameCube generation, Metroid Prime Remastered, Baten Kaitos, F-Zero GX, getting thrown around, and sure, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, why not? Now, with all that said, I still leave it up to a coin flip because I don't really want to get that fan base's hopes too high and then just be completely disappointed when either it doesn't happen or some other Paper Mario game gets announced that is nowhere near a more traditional turn-based RPG. That's the biggest sticking point right now, is Nintendo keeps trying all these different things with the Paper Mario series when it probably would work, at least from what we've seen as like a turn-based RPG style like Thousand Year Door. And if you're not going to make a new one like that, yeah, why not remaster the old one? We're also coming up on kind of the cycle for Paper Mario, I guess. It's what, every 4 years or so? And yeah, it seems like that time is running up. So I'm personally crossing my fingers, would love to see this go to the Switch, if nothing else, because it's difficult to attain if you want an actual copy on the GameCube where it's over $100. So I'm sure many people now are just kind of downloading it and emulating it as it is. So Nintendo may as well cash in with a $40, $50, probably $60 port and just make a bunch of money from it. So I guess we'll see. They said an announcement coming soon, and maybe it is a game that Nintendo lines up for this fall with potentially a June announcement around when we'd expect them to normally have a direct. Next up, let's talk about something that Nintendo does really well outside of just making games and apparently now movies, and that's essentially go to court and sue people over different things, especially when it comes to DMC takedowns, all of this, because we did see the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom art book leak out a bit early. And now Nintendo is pushing Discord to actually disclose the identity of the people who did this, and they've even gone as far as to try to shut down Discords that were distributing materials from that art book. We can see this posted up. This was from Torrent Freak. We can see Nintendo hunts down Zelda Tears of the Kingdom leaker on Discord. There's an entire timeline that they go through here, by the way, with Nintendo acting actually pretty quick with Discord, sending out subpoenas, DMCAs, Discord complying, ripping some of these images down very, very fast. And then we can see on Friday, April 4th, 2023, Nintendo America's attorneys filed an application for a DMCA subpoena at a district court in California, referencing the notices sent to Discord in respect of the copyright protected and unreleased special edition art book for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Check this out, though. Nintendo America is requesting the attached proposed subpoena that would order the Discord Inc. to disclose the identity, including the names, addresses, telephone numbers, and email addresses of the user who is responsible for posting infringing content that appeared at the following channel for Discord and Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and so on. And then check this out. Steven Totillo says Nintendo isn't just trying to get a court to force Discord to divulge the identity of a Tears of the Kingdom leaker. They tried to get a Zelda Discord server taken down because users kept offering to DM the leaked content. Discord issued a warning instead. I've told you guys many times that Nintendo does not mess around. They will continue to hunt people down until they can get them in court and essentially make an example out of them. And yes, even just posting up images of an art book, if they can trace it back to the source as to where it's originally coming from, they will go after you. They're not necessarily going to go after everyone in that Discord who is basically just continuing to repost it. Nintendo wants to find the original source and shut it down completely, or at least scare them into not sharing anything else. And obviously this is clearly going to happen going into I guess the biggest release for the Switch, at least from their standpoint when it comes to hype and intellectual property. They've put a lot of time, money, workforce into getting Tears of the Kingdom to the finish line. The last thing they want is an art book to spoil potentially good chunk, maybe all of the game. It's hard to say how far it goes with that art book, but there were a lot of things getting shown around and a lot of analysis being done on just a couple of pages that were first posted. I mean, we just saw the Pokemon company do something very similar with an entire art book leak that took place, and I believe they actually found them, took them to court, and made them pay in all of this. So yeah, if you're gonna mess around with Nintendo, just be sure, I guess you have good lawyers, because Nintendo, they appear to have the time. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft and their response to the entire situation around these emulators being blocked on the Xbox Series systems. Originally, there was an email that was circulating that named several reasons why they blocked it, one of which were complaints from Nintendo and other partners, but Microsoft was quick to correct this. And again, I just want to kind of update all of this as it's been ongoing, and we can see this posted up by IGN, who did get the response, saying, "The information currently circulating on Twitter is not accurate. Our statements are based on a long-standing policy on content distributed to the store to ensure alignment with our Microsoft Store policies. Per 10.13.10, products that emulate a game system or game platform are not allowed on any device family." Now, that does actually line up with them continuing to pull these different emulators down from the store as they were put up, and that was kind of the game you played if you were trying to get one of these onto your Xbox, is when a link goes live, it's going to expire pretty quickly because Microsoft will find and then pull these down hours later. But as long as you got it from the store page, you were good to go and it would still function. It's just a little strange that now, all of a sudden, they decided to start blocking these emulators. Something does tell me, though, it's linked to the Xbox 360 Xenia emulator all of a sudden working, and actually working really well, as that kind of gets around buying some of the games that are on their current store, right? Like, they have all kinds of Xbox 360 games that are there, but if Xenia functions well enough on your Xbox Series, you'll just go ahead and download and play them rather than spend $7, $8, $9 or something on a copy of the game digitally. So while I'm sure this is something that Microsoft has at least been keeping their eye on, something certainly pushed them over the edge recently, and that's all I can assume. But at least for now, Microsoft is saying had nothing to do with Nintendo. It was just a store policy we decided to enforce a bit harder now all of a sudden. Nothing to do with Xenia just randomly popping up now. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about one of the biggest struggles right now in gaming, pop culture, and food, and that's, well, confusing Monster Energy with Pokemon. I know, it's tough, right? Well, at least that's according to Monster Energy, who, well, certainly likes to look around at different trademarks and find places where the word monster is, because they're concerned that people might think that that's linked to Monster Energy. No, I'm serious. In fact, there is a recent example that's been brought up, and then people started to dig into kind of the history of trademark infringements and cases that have happened, and this is going to blow your mind of how dumb this all really sounds. Take a look. This posted up over on Twitter from Vincent, who says, "Monster Energy's lawyers are coming after us right now because Monsters Mortals has the word monsters in it. They claim that our game is confusingly similar to their energy drink." Yep, that's really their claim. Rather than roll over, I'm going to fight them in court. Now, Monsters Immortals is over on Steam right now, if you want to check that out. But then we can kind of look a bit further into the past here for this entire situation. This over on Automaton Media says, "Monster Energy rights holder filed a large number of trademark registration objections, such as Pokemon and Monster Hunter in the past. Obviously, Pocket Monsters in Japan. how do you tell the difference? I mean, it's rough, right? They look so similar. How do you know which one's a video game? How do you know which one's an energy drink? Also, there was a case where they went after the Toronto Raptors because of their logo with the basketball, and I guess it looking similar to their M sideways without the top of it. Now, for the most part, a lot of these trademark claims have just been thrown out because, I mean, obviously, but one where it actually had an effect was Ubisoft, where, remember, Immortals Fenyx Rising was originally called Gods and Monsters. Apparently, that was altered and changed because of Monster Energy. Again, this whole thing just sounds really dumb, and apparently this is just what Monster Energy does. They're patent trolls or trademark trolls, I guess, where they go around and see if they can basically push up against an indie developer even who looks at that and says, well, I don't have the money to fight this in court, so I'm either going to change my name or do some sort of settlement out of court or out of trademark stuff and all this, and then I can move along. So it's a really bad look for Monster. I had no idea this has been ongoing as long as it has, but the history's there and all the filings, and it's just, what a strange thing for Monster to spend their time doing. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I asked, have you played Paper Mario Thousand Year Door? 67% say no, 33% say yes. Okay, so right away, Nintendo probably has a large audience on the Switch that have never played Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. Paper Mario has actually been selling fairly well, too, so it seems like it all lines up for Nintendo to just make a bunch of money. But it kind of seems like we say that a lot about Nintendo, and they do something really weird. Sometimes it works out with the Switch, other times they release a Wii U, so I kind of hope Nintendo just plays it safe, just makes a remaster of Thousand Year Door. Maybe they'll sell it for $60. I kind of feel like that's a $40 or $50 game, and they just kind of push it out there. Just do the basics, you know, upscale it, maybe some quality of life stuff here and there, but not a lot has to be done visually for it. So I am crossing my fingers. I think it'd be great because it would just be more accessible to many, many people out there with how expensive it is on the GameCube now. And not everyone's willing to set up an emulator, download ISOs from sketchy websites and all these different things. So Nintendo, why don't you just go ahead and move it to the Switch and probably make a bunch of money from it. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from MK, says, Metroid has the biggest potential for a movie or TV universe. Its lore is so vast and rich. So I think Metroid has a ton of potential, you're right, but it also has a ton of risk associated with it because they can mess it up. I know things have gotten a lot better for streaming series and movies as opposed to where it was, I mean, really just like 10 years ago. But there's always a chance they come out with something that's closer to the Halo series that we recently saw that did its best to try to kill Halo in front of me. Fortunately, I can still go back and play the Master Chief Collection and go through the Halo 3 campaign or even Reach and be like, okay, things are fine. But that's the thing. It could turn out to be really, really good, or you could end up having a terrible series on your hands. You're kind of locked in then, and then people kind of want to disassociate with the franchise, and a lot of risk, but also a lot of potential, and I'm hoping Nintendo does what they did with the Super Mario movie, and that's get people who know the Metroid lore very well, whether it's developers, directors, whoever, with some of these games, and have them keep it in the oven until it's absolutely ready to go, and then just release an awesome Metroid series, because that would be really cool to see that actually come to fruition. Also, one other thing, I'm curious how dark Nintendo would allow the director to go with kind of the direction of Metroid. Like, would this be like a PG-13? Would they go an R rating? I doubt they'd go R rating, but like, how far would they let them push that franchise when it comes to the adult themes and kind of the action, all of this? So again, that's where there's a lot of risk involved. I'm just hoping if they do it, they can do it right. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whether it's Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, have you played it? And if it went to the Switch, would you buy it there? And then also, what about Monster Hunter and Monster Energy? Are you someone that's also having a hard time telling the difference? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.